There will be an Armageddon to decide who will be knocked out.
Hello everyone, how are you guys doing? Hope everything is fantastic. Here Grandmaster Pepe Cuenca to enjoy with you guys another Armageddon game between Vachier-Lagrave and Hikaru Nakamura. And Nakamura smiling since he won the bet by a few seconds, so that means he'll play with the black pieces and 9 minutes and 49 seconds, needing only a draw to win this match. Maxime will have the white pieces and he'll have 15 minutes in the clock. So stop doing what you're doing and let's enjoy all together this fantastic game. And we're off with the game. Maxime starting with the white pieces. They shake hands and Maxime starts with e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to f6, the Petrov defense. And after knight takes e5, knight takes e4, we are in the so-called Damiano variation. This was considered to be a mistake in the past, but Nakamura has played this variation lately with good results. The point after d6 is that the knight on e5 is pinned, so that means black gets the piece back immediately. White can protect the knight by playing d4 or f4, keeping an extra pawn in this position. So after d takes f5, f takes e5, black will try to create a lot of counterplay in the next moves. f5, naturally you cannot take and pass hand, and that's why queen e3 is being played, knight c6, knight c3, and knight b4. Well, threatening a terrible fork on c2. This is basically forcing white to go king d1, leaving this king without the right to castle for the rest of the game. Bishop e6 for Nakamura. Now black's idea is of course to go long castle in the next move. a3, knight c6 back. And now Maxime could think about going bishop to b5, threatening, well, just pinning the knight on c6 and developing a piece. Now g5 from Nakamura. What a move. What a crazy game. You know, such a difficult position to understand. d3, f4, attacking the queen. And now you have so many options for the queen, but probably the most natural square is just e4, increasing the pressure against c6. Now, if you want to protect the knight on c6, you can go either queen d7 or bishop to d7, but also you could think about going long castle in this position, just sacrificing another pawn. Of course, Nakamura at some point will develop the f8 bishop, probably to g7, and there is also a nice and tasty square on g4 for the bishop, right? This check could be very annoying for white, since white already played d3 and the bishop on b5 cannot come back. So long castle, sacrificing another pawn. Maxime is very hungry and takes the pawn on c6, b takes e6, and now white has two interesting options. The first one, of course, is to take the free pizza on c6. The second option is just to improve the king's safety. An idea could be to go bishop to d2, and after bishop g4, check king c1. Then you can proceed with b3, king b2, and then that king is extremely happy in that part of the board, drinking a mojito in some swimming pool in a resort in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. So what to do? We take the free pizza or we go to the resort and drink a mojito on b2. So Maxime is hungry and takes the pizza on c6. Now bishop to g4 check. This forces white to go king d2, and that king is in a very, very bad situation. I'm very worried about Maxime queen's side, right? Because now the bishop on c1 cannot be easily developed. Also, this leaves the rook on a1 completely out of play. Now Nakamura probably thinking about taking the pawn on e5. After queen takes e5, you know, black is actually threatening to go queen e3 with a checkmate, right? So white will have to deal with that. So remember that after queen e5, black still a pawn down, but of course black has the bishop pair and a lot of activity. Queen takes e5, rook e1, attacking the queen and covering e3 and queen c5. Naturally, Nakamura is happy with the draw since we are in an Armageddon game, so the endgame is around equal since black's a pawn down, but the bishop pair is super strong for black. Queen a6, Maxime trying to make things very complicated, and knight e4. I love this knight on e4. It's not only putting pressure now against the queen on c5, but also covering the critical square on f2. Imagine a queen landing on f2. That would be the end for white in that position. So queen d5 from Nakamura, centralizing the queen. Now, this queen on d5 is doing a great job. You know, in many cases, of course, there are some tricks on e4, and also you are covering the b5 square, right? So there are no checks for white in this position. So it's a very difficult moment for Maxime, because now it's extremely hard to, well, to develop the queen side. So I'm thinking about the move knight f6 with a fork, but of course this runs into queen takes g2. And you could think about also going b3 in this position. This is probably the most natural move. intending to go bishop to b2, bringing the bishop to the best diagonal, but then you realize that black arrives first actually to the main diagonal with bishop to g7, and you are not on time to develop the bishop to b2. What else can we do here with the white pieces? You cannot move the king to e2 or d1, so that means the bishop on c1 is going to be at home for some time. And you cannot kick the queen by playing c4, right? Because that runs into queen takes d3 checkmate. So what else? What to play? Queen c4 is not a possibility since there is a nasty pin on the d file. So what is Maxime thinking about? He goes a4, and then the engine bar is suffering a heart attack suddenly. Maxime's idea is very interesting though, because, you know, whenever the black bishop lands on g7, then Maxime can activate the rook via a3. And also, you know, Maxime is getting ready to play queen to b5 check, because if we trade queens in that way, then the a file gets opened, and suddenly the a1 rook is very happy, right? Because the a7 pawn is actually a very weak pawn in that situation, right? And Nakamura goes c6. What a move! This is such a fantastic move, guys, because, you know, Nakamura is not only avoiding queen b5, but he's threatening to go bishop c8 in the next move, just trapping the queen. That's why Maxime plays b3. The idea of the bishop c8 is that now white can play queen c4, and after queen c4, you can take with the b pawn, right? You were not able to take with the d pawn since there is a pin, as you can see in the board, right? So now what to play here? Well, black has two decent options. The first one is bishop to g7. This is very natural, attacking the rook. But maybe bishop b4 is just winning in this position, guys. Let's analyze all together. Bishop b4 check, c3 only move, queen takes b3, and there, if white takes on b4, then there is this fantastic move, bishop c8, deflecting the queen from the d3 pawn, right? And after queen c4, just queen c4 wins the game, and if white takes on c6, then queen takes d3 is just checkmate. What a beautiful variation. But of course, you know, Nakamura, very long time. This is an Armageddon game, and then we have here, of course, the engine var evaluation. Bishop to g7, more natural move, attacking the rook, and now rook b1 from Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Now, you know, white's plan is very simple. White wants to go bishop to b2 in this position, just fighting against this guy on g7, which looks very strong, this bishop on g7. He's the strongest guy in the gym, right? He can do like 55 push-ups and then 30 squats in like 40 seconds, carrying 3 chessboards signed by Magnus Carlsen. So Nakamura goes rook e8. The idea behind rook e8 was, of course, to take on e4, followed by queen e4, winning the game. So queen c4, reinforcing the e4 square, and Nakamura goes queen a5 check. Well, this allows white to go b4, winning a tempo. And now this is a very hard position for black. What to do here? Because you can take either on a4, gaining some material back, but then you realize that after bishop b2, white has managed to complete development, right? And if the bishop pair gets off the board, then white will be in great shape in that position. The king on d2 looks healthy right now, and of course there are some nice attacking ideas on the queen side for white. You have the push b5 in mind in many occasions, and also the g5 pawn could be hanging in many variations. So what to play here with the black pieces? You don't want to go back to d5 because as a chess player you think you're stupid, right? You just played queen a5 b4 and then you go back to d5. It's very hard for a chess player to admit a mistake. So Nakamura grabs the pawn on a4, bishop b2, bishop takes b2, rook takes b2, and then queen to b5, blocking the b file, stopping the b5 pushes, jumping on the chair, grabbing some chess pieces and saying, you know what, if you grab the queen on b5, Maxime, then I'll take with the c pawn, then my pawn structure is gonna be better. So how to play here? Maxime keeps the queens on the board, but Naka says, you know what, I'm gonna chase you, my friend, by playing queen e5. Now it's not that easy to capture the pawn on c6 since there is a hanging rook on b2. So how to play here with the white pieces? This is a nice variation. Let's calculate it all together, guys. So b5 is very interesting here. If black takes on b5, then queen takes e5, rook takes e5, knight f6. The point is that after rook e1, you have the intermediate move rook takes b5 check. And after king a8, let's say king e1, there is a double attack against the bishop on g4 and the pawn on g5 with the rook. I know chess is so hard, but that's why it's so interesting. You know, I've been playing for 35 years and I still know nothing. So what to play here with the white pieces? So Maxime finally going for b5 in this position, opening some lines. Now what to play here with the black pieces? It's not easy to close the file, right, by playing c5, because the pawn on c5 is extremely weak as well, and also white has the option of going b6. So Nakamura finally about to move, and then he takes the pawn on b5. Rook a1 immediately played by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. There are two critical targets in black's position. One of them is the pawn on a7. The other one is the pawn on b5, and the French bringing all the forces against them. You cannot take on c3 now, guys, because after queen c3, knight c3, it's impossible to protect the b5 pawn since a6 runs into the simple rook takes a6. So how to play here with the black pieces? Nakamura taking his time. He goes for rook d5. Fantastic defensive move, increasing the protection of both pawns on b5 and then g5. How to play here with the white pieces, guys? Maybe keep the queens on the board. Maybe queen a3 is an option, putting pressure against the pawn on a7. Maybe queen c6, another possibility. Or also queen to a5. Because if you take the rook on b2, probably after queen a7 check, this is gonna be checkmate for black. King c8, queen a8, followed by rook a7. And probably this is just time to resign. Sayonara, baby. It was a pleasure to meet you, but you are not the love of my life. Queen a5, but suddenly the engine bar is saying that black is completely winning. Probably the reason is rook d3, ra-ta-ta-ta-ta. C takes c3, queen b2 is just checkmate. You take with the king, then queen e4. That's gonna be checkmate, but Nakamura doesn't see it, and he goes for rook e7, the most natural move. It's so easy when we are sitting at home, right? We have the engine evaluation, but of course, it's just extremely hard when you're sitting there, even for the best chess players in the world. Now, Maxime plays rook ab1. Now, rook d3 is not working anymore, since after c takes d3, the rook on b2 is now protected, and rook takes b5 is naturally the threat now. So how to protect that pawn? Rook b7 for Nakamura, playing fantastic defensive chess. Now, all the weaknesses have been protected from black. So now probably it's time, well, to start doing something. Maybe queen e4 is a threat now, because you have covered the d8 square and also the b5 pawns. That's why Maxime goes rook b4, protected the knight on e4. Nakamura, what to do now? He goes f3, fantastic move. Because now there are so many nasty checks on f4 and also on h2 after white takes on f3. Now it's very hard to play here with the white pieces. I don't find a nice move here for white, but the good news for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is that he has almost 9 minutes in the clock. Nakamura cannot say the same, of course. He's very low on time. He's got some practical problems. Now, pawn takes e3, bishop takes e3. Now, you know, bishop e4 is once again winning the game, since after rook e4, queen e4, once again, the pin along the d file. So, knight c3 attacking, well, the rook on d5. So, how to protect that rook? Probably with rook c5, not only, well, stopping knight takes d5, but also now threatening to go queen takes c3, winning the game and the piece. So how to protect the knight? Remember, there are some queen h2 ideas also, right? Sending this king to c1. But now, more important, Maxime needs to protect this guy. Probably with rook b3 is a possibility. d4 is never an option, right? Because of queen f4 or queen h2. And queen d8 check, rook c8, and then queen d4. So Nakamura, will he take on h2 or not? Or maybe just trading queens. He takes on h2. King c1 is the only move. Probably this king is very well placed on b2 at least. It doesn't have any problems. And a6 for Nakamura, who has protected everything. And now is 2 pawns up, 2 clean pawns up in this position. Now, of course, you know, it's very important to minimize risks. And queen c7, that's a fantastic move from Nakamura. The idea is to go queen c5, you know, and end a party. You know, Maxime is dancing with all his friends, you know, in a disco, you know, just grabbing some drinks, having a lot of fun. But Nakamura is the police here, arriving at 6 a.m. to the bar saying, you know what, you guys have to close the disco, you know, it's time to sleep, it's time to go for a kebab, you know, and tomorrow you have to work. So Nakamura arriving with the police to c5. And why is queen c5 such a strong move in this position? Because you cannot protect both the rook and the knight, and then you are forced to trade queens in that position. Wow, fantastic. And then he starts saying, yes, yes, I'm very close to win this Armageddon, to win this match. But of course, it's never easy. So now Maxime taking the time. Queen takes e5, rook takes e5, and then knight b1. He wants to develop the knight to d2, but now it's time to push. Push then, baby. Knight to d2 and rook f5, just protecting the bishop on f3. Now what to do? He doubles rook on the f5. He doesn't want any troubles with the bishop on f3. Now c4, bishop c6, reinforcing the b5 square, right? Knight to b3. And of course, knight d4 is in the air. Rook to d7 from Nakamura, stopping knight d4 ideas. Very nice prophylactic move. Rook e6, king c7, just protecting the bishop. Now, once you have protected everything, it's time to push them, baby. So d4, interesting move. Of course, d5 is in the air, but I think black can just take on c4. After rook c4, rook d6, only move, but probably enough just to keep the advantage. There we go with rook d6, rook e7, and king d8 attacking the rook. Maxime has to move the rook away, rook h7, and now rook to b5. Look at this move, such a fantastic move. The idea is in many cases to take even on b3, followed by bishop d5, and of course you are trading everything, and a draw is enough. Rook c5 from Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and now probably you can take on c5. Nakamura with less than 1 minute in the clock. He goes for h4. Rook takes e5. Now d takes e5, and then rook g6. Probably a good move. The rook's behind the pawns, and now it's time to push them till infinity. g4, g3, g2, g1. Knight d4, then takes g3. Now you gotta stop that pawn on g3, and you are forced to take the bishop, and then they're gonna reach a rook endgame, which is of course a draw. And Nakamura has played a fantastic Armageddon game. Such a crazy and complicated game to understand. Chess is so beautiful. It's been a pleasure. This is Pepe Cuenca for Chess.com, and I send you a big hug from Granada.